I want to explore this idea of not having an enemy, because that's actually, I feel, what the service that I provide right now is taking away the enemy. And that triggers people a lot because it's like saying there's no bad out there, or it's like not calling out the bad that's happening. And that's not actually what I'm saying. There's like a little fine distinction there that I want to get into in this video. So, what does it mean not to have an enemy? It means that you don't have to have someone outside of yourself that you're fighting against. So it doesn't mean that there's no bad. It doesn't mean that there's no evil and destruction, but it means that you are not fighting, and you're in yourself are radiating a vibration of peace. And this takes a little bit of work. So I just want to share the story I was telling last night to my son. For some reason, I told him the story of Sodom and Gomorrah from the biblical story, where Sodom and Gomorrah is like this city that has become so corrupt and so evil that God burns it down to the ground, and he saves Lot and his wife, and he tells them, you guys are the good ones. You can walk out of here safely, but just don't look back, or you'll turn into a pillar of salt. I said to my son, the Lot's wife, she looked back and she turned into stone. I said stone. And he was so fascinated by this thing, and he kept asking me, like, but why did she turn into stone? I said, I don't know. She was curious. She wanted to see what was happening in the burnt city. But why did she look back? Why did she look back? So he was really fascinated by this. And I remember as a child, I was also very fascinated by the story. I learned it young as well. And we lived actually in the area in Israel where this thing supposedly happened, near the Dead Sea. And we were driving around there. I always used to look at the mountains to see if I could see the figure of this woman that had turned into stone. So he was very curious about it, and it made me also wonder, like, kind of go back to the story with my adult self now and wonder what this story means actually. And I found that in myself, thinking that, well, it could be a story about knowing that something is bad is happening out there and not engaging with it actually. And that's controversial to say, because in that not engaging with the bad, does that mean I'm saying that we let the bad happen? No, it means that we're saying that we have to also find our boundaries and how much we can do about it. And when is the place where you're so engaged with it that you're actually turned into stone, meaning no movement. And that was actually Lot's wife's downfall, is when she looked back and when she engaged with it. It's like an over engagement with the bad things in the world that doesn't have movement anymore, that's not keeping you in motion. And it's good to reflect on ourselves. When is it that we have engaged so much with the evil, with the bad, that we're not really creating the world we want to live in anymore? And that's actually what I do in my work, both in groups and one-on-one. Because in groups, I use the group to kind of point out to each other, well, this here is not there's no conflict here. There's maybe a dilemma. Here's a dilemma. So we get to see how much we externalize our need for an enemy on the other. And on one-on-one, we do it too. We just do it in ourselves. So rather than, instead of having the enemy out there, we see it inside of ourselves. We take that extra step to see, wait, that's actually not out there, but it's in here. And why am I fighting actually with this part of myself? Why don't I hold it? Why don't I hold it with love? And I feel that that's part of the lesson of the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah, is when we have crossed over to engaging with something that's not really beneficial anymore and isn't really creating the world that we are claiming that we want to build, that we want to create. And how much in bringing up the idea of, or the embodying the idea of not having an enemy, how sometimes that makes you the enemy just for putting that idea out there. So I wanted to put that out there, see what people think, and any feedback or comments or engagement is very welcomed.